Let me be direct with you from the outset. What the Israeli Defense Forces discovered 3 weeks ago along the Lebanese border is not a series of tunnels. It is not a smuggling network or a defensive fortification. What the IDF discovered is an underground highway system extending 40 kilometers into Israeli territory with 200 identified entry points and God knows how many more that remain undetected. I am looking at classified briefing documents that were leaked to Israeli media outlets on April 14th and subsequently confirmed by multiple defense officials speaking on background. What these documents show is not a tactical problem. It is not a border security gap. What they show is the systematic compromise of Israel's northern frontier over a period of at least 8 years, and the complete failure of billions of dollars in sensor technology, surveillance systems, and intelligence operations to detect it. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly how Hezbollah built an underground invasion route longer than the Channel Tunnel without Israeli intelligence detecting it, why the Iron Dome and border barriers you see on television are strategically irrelevant if the threat is already underneath them, and why American military analysts are studying these tunnels to understand vulnerabilities in their own border infrastructure. This is the Daily Brief. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to cover is based on internal IDF assessments that were never meant for public release. Let's start with the geography of the Israeli-Lebanese border, because understanding the terrain tells you everything about the engineering challenge Hezbollah solved. The border runs approximately 120 kilometers from the Mediterranean coast in the west to the slopes of Mount Hermon in the east. The terrain varies from coastal plains to heavily forested hill country to mountainous regions with elevations exceeding 1,000 meters. This is not Gaza, where tunnels are dug through relatively soft sand and clay at shallow depths. The Lebanese border region features limestone bedrock, underground water tables, and geological complexity that makes tunnel construction extraordinarily difficult. Israeli military engineers have stated publicly that constructing tunnels in this terrain requires industrial equipment, sophisticated ventilation systems, and geological expertise that goes far beyond what militant groups typically possess. And yet, according to the leaked IDF documents, Hezbollah has constructed a network of tunnels with the following specifications: depths ranging from 25 to 40 meters below the surface, width sufficient to move vehicles and heavy equipment, lengths extending up to 40 kilometers from Lebanese territory into Israel, reinforced concrete lining in sections where geological instability required it, electrical systems for lighting and ventilation, and communications infrastructure allowing coordination between tunnel segments. The IDF assessment estimates the construction timeline at between 8 and 12 years. The estimated cost ranges from $200 million to $500 million, depending on whether you include the infrastructure investments in Lebanon required to support the operation. The estimated workforce runs into the thousands when you account for engineers, laborers, security personnel, and logistics support. This is not a terrorist organization operating in secret. This is a civil engineering project on the scale of major transportation infrastructure, conducted underneath the nose of one of the most sophisticated intelligence services in the world. Subscribe if you are realizing that what you have been told about Israeli security dominance does not match the reality of what was just discovered under their border. Announcement number 1, the 200 entry points are not tunnel openings. And this one matters more than anything else the media is reporting because it fundamentally changes what these tunnels are designed to accomplish. According to IDF Engineering Corps' assessments, the 200 entry points are not exits for foot soldiers to emerge from tunnels and conduct raids. They are access shafts for logistics, ventilation, emergency evacuation, and command and control connectivity. The actual assault tunnels, the tunnels designed to move fighters and equipment from Lebanon into Israel, number somewhere between 15 and 30, and their exit points are still being located. Think about what this means operationally. Hezbollah did not build a tunnel network to infiltrate small teams for intelligence gathering or kidnapping operations. They built an underground invasion route capable of moving hundreds or thousands of fighters, along with anti-tank missiles, mortars, ammunition, and supplies, directly into Israeli territory while bypassing every checkpoint, every sensor, every guard post, and every kilometer of border barrier that Israeli has spent decades constructing. Colonel Amir Baram, former commander of IDF Northern Command Engineering Division, stated in an interview with Haaretz, and I am quoting him directly here, that the scope and sophistication of this network suggests planning at the strategic level, not the tactical level. This is infrastructure designed for a major ground offensive, not guerrilla raids. Israel's border security model assumes threats approach from Lebanon into Israel. Surveillance systems face outward. Barriers are designed to stop infiltration from the north. Rapid response forces are positioned to intercept threats detected at or near the border. But if Hezbollah fighters emerge from tunnels 5, 10, or 15 kilometers inside Israeli territory, behind the security infrastructure, behind the IDF forward positions, in communities and towns that believe they are protected by the layers of defense to their north, the entire security model collapses. Israeli settlements in the north would not be facing an invasion force they could see approaching. They would discover that the invasion force was already among them, emerging from basements and fields and hillsides, cutting off roads, isolating communities, and engaging Israeli defense forces from positions the IDF never anticipated defending. Received. That is announcement number 1. Announcement number 2. Israeli intelligence did not miss the tunnels. They knew about tunnel construction and failed to grasp the scale. This is the part that has caused multiple resignations within Shin Bet and military intelligence divisions. According to investigative reporting by Yedioth Ahronoth and confirmed by intelligence sources speaking to the Jerusalem Post, Israeli signals intelligence detected unusual vibrations and acoustic signatures along the border as early as 2016. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted in 2018 and 2019 identified anomalies consistent with underground voids in multiple locations. The intelligence was there. What failed was the interpretation and response. Military intelligence assessed the tunnels as limited defensive infrastructure or small-scale infiltration routes similar to what Hamas had constructed in Gaza. The threat was categorized as manageable, not existential. Resources were allocated to counter-tunnel technology development, but not to comprehensive excavation operations that would have required evacuating border communities and conducting years of disruptive ground operations. Stay with me, because this is where the intelligence failure becomes a political failure, and where domestic Israeli anger is building in ways that will shape the government's response options. Israeli citizens living in northern communities were told repeatedly that their security was guaranteed. They were told that surveillance technology would detect any threats. They were told that the IDF maintained total awareness of Hezbollah capabilities. And now they are learning that for 8 years, while they slept in their homes, while their children played in parks, while they went to work and school, Hezbollah was digging invasion routes underneath them. The political consequences in Israel are going to be severe. Multiple inquiries are underway. Commanders have been reassigned. Intelligence protocols are being completely overhauled. But none of that changes the strategic reality that right now, today, Hezbollah possesses the capability to move forces into Israel through routes that Israeli cannot fully map, cannot fully destroy, and cannot fully monitor. Announcement number 3, and this is the piece that reveals the true strategic calculation. The tunnels were never meant to be secret forever. Hezbollah intended for Israel to discover them eventually. The question was when and under what circumstances. Hezbollah did not accidentally allow these tunnels to be discovered. The rate of discovery, the locations where entry shafts were found, and the timing relative to broader regional tensions all suggest this was a controlled revelation designed to shift Israeli strategic planning and force a reallocation of military resources. By revealing the existence of extensive tunnel networks now, Hezbollah forces Israel to commit enormous resources to tunnel detection, mapping, and destruction. Every bulldozer searching for tunnels in the north is a bulldozer not available for operations in Gaza or the West Bank. Every engineering unit mapping underground infrastructure is a unit pulled from other missions. Every intelligence analyst studying tunnel ventilation systems is an analyst not tracking Iranian weapons shipments or Palestinian militant activity. This is strategic misdirection at scale. Hezbollah ties down Israeli military and intelligence resources with a defensive problem that has no quick solution, while maintaining offensive capability through the very tunnels Israel is trying to find and destroy. And here is the truly devious element. Even if Israel locates and destroys 80% of the tunnel network, Hezbollah only needs a handful of functioning tunnels to execute their operational plans. The IDF cannot declare victory until every single tunnel is found and filled. Hezbollah can claim success as long as any tunnels remain operational. The burden of proof sits entirely with Israel, and Israel cannot meet that burden without years of sustained operations that will exhaust resources and political will. Received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's talk about what is really happening behind the official statements, because Israeli government talking points about regaining border security are disconnected from the operational reality their own military assessments describe. The public narrative is that IDF has the situation under control, tunnel destruction operations are proceeding successfully, and northern residents should feel confident in their safety. Defense Minister Gallant has stated that Israel will restore complete border security within 18 months. The classified assessments paint a very different picture. Internal IDF documents estimate that comprehensive tunnel detection across the entire border region would require between 5 and 8 years, assuming full resource allocation and no interference from Hezbollah. The documents assess that Hezbollah retains the capability to construct new tunnels faster than Israel can find and destroy existing ones, particularly if construction occurs during periods when IDF resources are committed to conflicts in Gaza or the West Bank. The mathematics are brutal. If Israel can destroy 5 kilometers of tunnels per year and Hezbollah can construct 3 kilometers of new tunnels per year, Israel makes progress, but Hezbollah still maintains operational capability indefinitely. You cannot win a race where the finish line moves backwards every time you take a step forward. Think carefully about what this represents. When a non-state military organization can build strategic infrastructure underneath the territory of a nuclear-armed nation-state, and when that nation-state cannot prevent future construction or guarantee complete destruction of existing infrastructure, traditional concepts of territorial sovereignty become meaningless. If you are a resident of Kiryat Shmona or Metula or any of the northern border towns, what is happening in Iranian nuclear facilities or Syrian weapons transfers is not your primary security concern. Your primary concern is whether the ground underneath your house is solid earth or a Hezbollah tunnel that could become an entry point for fighters who emerge at 3 a.m. when your family is sleeping. This pattern has repeated throughout military history. Defensive fortifications become obsolete the moment an adversary develops the capability to bypass them. The Maginot Line could not stop German forces that went around it. The Atlantic Wall could not prevent D-Day landings that concentrated overwhelming force at weak points. And Israeli border barriers cannot stop Hezbollah fighters who approach from underground. Consider the Soviet experience in Afghanistan during the 1980s. The Soviet Union possessed overwhelming military superiority, advanced aircraft, thousands of tanks, artillery supremacy, and a massive logistical network. The Afghan Mujahideen possessed none of those assets. What they possessed was knowledge of terrain, endless patience, and the willingness to absorb casualties that Soviet forces could not sustain politically. The Soviets could win every conventional battle. They could destroy any Mujahideen formation that assembled in the open, but they could not stop infiltration through mountain passes. They could not monitor continuously. They could not prevent attacks on supply convoys along roads they could not defend completely. And after 10 years of fighting, the Soviet Union withdrew, having achieved none of its strategic objectives. Israel is not the Soviet Union, and Hezbollah is not the Mujahideen, but the pattern of asymmetric warfare where the technologically superior force cannot translate battlefield victories into strategic success is exactly the same. Israel can destroy individual tunnels. Israel can kill Hezbollah fighters. But Israel cannot eliminate the underground network completely, cannot prevent reconstruction, and cannot guarantee security to populations who now understand that the barriers they trusted were never as effective as they were told. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 paths forward, because the choice Israeli leadership makes in response to this discovery will determine whether we see regional war or a frozen conflict that festers for years. Path 1: massive military operation into southern Lebanon. Israel launches a ground offensive designed to occupy Lebanese territory up to the Litani River, destroy all tunnel infrastructure through direct excavation and demolition, and establish a permanent buffer zone that prevents reconstruction. This would require mobilizing 50,000 to 100,000 troops, sustaining an occupation for multiple years, and accepting casualties that Israeli society has not experienced since the Lebanon wars of the 1980s and 2006. It would trigger Hezbollah rocket attacks on Israeli cities, likely draw in Iranian support, and potentially spark wider regional conflict. Probability given current political climate, 25%. Path 2: technological containment. Israel invests massively in tunnel detection technology, conducts targeted strikes on identified tunnel entrances in Lebanon, and establishes a sensor network designed to detect future construction. This maintains the status quo where Hezbollah retains some tunnel capability, but Israeli believes it has situational awareness and can respond to any infiltration attempt. This is the path Israeli leadership appears to prefer because it avoids the political costs of a major ground operation while allowing them to claim they are addressing the threat. Probability 60%. Path 3: negotiated deconfliction. Israel and Hezbollah, through Lebanese government intermediaries and possible UN involvement, reach an understanding where Hezbollah agrees not to use the tunnels offensively in exchange for Israel not launching major military operations into Lebanon. Both sides maintain their capabilities but establish red lines designed to prevent escalation. This is the rational solution that minimizes casualties and economic costs, but it requires both sides to trust that the other will honor commitments, which given the history is nearly impossible. Probability 15%. I think we are on path 2, which means we are headed for a frozen conflict where both sides maintain maximum readiness, where Israeli northern residents live under permanent psychological threat, and where any miscalculation or provocation could trigger the escalation that leads to path 1. But here is what I am watching, and you should watch it too. Israeli civilian evacuations from northern border towns over the next 90 days. If you see large-scale evacuations framed as temporary security measures, that is preparation for major military operations. If evacuations remain limited to specific towns directly adjacent to identified tunnel entrances, that suggests Israel is choosing containment over confrontation. Also watch Hezbollah's public statements. If Hassan Nasrallah or other senior commanders begin referencing the tunnels explicitly, threatening to use them, or describing operational scenarios, that is escalation signaling. If Hezbollah remains quiet about the tunnels and focuses rhetoric on other issues, that suggests they prefer to maintain ambiguity about capability and intent. Here are the questions I want you to take away. Can Israel accept permanent insecurity on its northern border, or does domestic political pressure force military action regardless of strategic wisdom? Can Hezbollah maintain the discipline not to use the tunnels prematurely, or will tactical commanders make decisions that trigger wider conflict? And can the United States or other international actors broker an arrangement that prevents this frozen conflict from becoming a shooting war? Tell me in the comments whether you think Israel launches a ground operation into Lebanon within the next 6 months, or whether this becomes another unresolved security dilemma that Israeli society learns to live with. Tell me if you believe tunnel warfare changes the balance of power fundamentally, or if Israel still retains escalation dominance through air power and technology. We will keep tracking every development as IDF tunnel detection operations continue, and as Hezbollah calculates whether to reveal more of their capabilities or keep them hidden until the moment of maximum strategic impact. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone trying to understand why underground tunnels in Lebanon matter for regional stability and American interests. Turn on notifications because when this situation escalates, and eventually it will, we will be here to explain exactly what happened, why it happened, and what it means for you. We will see you in the next analysis.